Okay, Commissioners, the next item is item number 6. It's an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan. It's 249 West 138th Street, located within the St. Nicholas Historic District. Docket number 162349. This is a neo-Georgian style row house built in 1891-92. The application is to modify and enlarge the rear yard addition and garage. This was read into the record on April 7th, 2015. It's being presented for the first time today.
Okay. We'll reopen the hearing.
Good afternoon, good morning, Commissioners. Ryan Walsh, Preservation Department staff. The application is for 249 West 138th Street in the St. Nicholas Historic District, and the application is to modify and enlarge an existing L, rear yard addition, and garage. Jimmy Lowe, the architect, is here. He's going to present the rest of the project to you.
Good morning. My name is Jim Lowe. I'm here to represent Wayne and Mary Edelman, who currently own and reside at 249 West 138th Street. Thank you for taking your time to your request for a certificate of appropriateness. Before I get started in the details of our work, I would like to briefly speak about the historic district, which I believe will be relevant later when we look at the shared service alley, which had also a very used condition back there. Thank you. This is St. Nicholas Historic District. And in 1891, the developer hired 3 different architects to design the buildings. I believe it's 146 row houses, 3 apartment buildings. The 3 styles are in red brick, yellow brick with limestone and terracotta, and also brown brick, molten brown brick with, again, yellow terracotta and limestone. Limestone. We happen to be one of the yellow brick buildings here. So in this historic district, there are all these buildings with different styles, and although it was developed as a large streetscape across the entire 4 fronts of the block, we have slightly varying conditions even within the same type of brick housing. You may not notice it here. We happen to be the second building off of a little pathway, which these buildings are slightly proud of the rest of that street line. This is the nature of St. Nicholas Historic District, and one of the unique features are the rare service alleys that all the buildings share in the back. Here we have a historic district plan, or historic block plan. This, we believe, is a close resemblance of what that block would have looked like in the past when it was originally developed. You can see the row of townhouses in the middle, and the alcove near half-width, 2-story additions on the back, and then some sort of a 1-story garage or wall along the service alley. What looks like 6 blocks is actually 1 large block with, again, multiple gates and paths to connect the main streets. For the sake of reference, I'm going to call the 2 buildings on the side of the gates as corner buildings, which are a little wider, much deeper. Here in the bottom, we have the current block plan, which now shows the current conditions of that rear yard, which that service alley, and I call the secondary facade of the service alley a facade, a structure, because although later when we get into the photos, you'll see that these structures look like garage doors. You may notice above what you thought was a garage wall, tree branches are reaching out towards you. So there might have been a garage there once before, but there is a lot of variety of conditions in the rear, and this is, unfortunately, this is the only consistent thing about the rear is that it is inconsistent, the style, the materials, and so on. And I'm going to go to the next image here. Here are the photos. I started with panoramics on the west side of each mini block, if you will. As I walked east, the next set of panoramics. As if I was driving facing west, I took a series of photos down the driveway, and then coming back the other way facing east, another series of photos to show the variety of texture that is current in that service alley. Some of these structures might have been original we know that many of the structures are very old, and where you might think there is where you might think there is a garage, behind the wall could actually be a courtyard or something of that sort, or half a garage rather. One of the conditions we have on the block, and you can see over here in this photo, you can barely make out our rear facade over here, fairly noticeable. On the same property, on the same mini block, there is a existing two-story addition at the service facade line here. That is not typical, but it is existing, and it is very old. To the work. What we're proposing is to take our alcove, currently, it is roughly half the width of our property, and expand it full width. Part of the work is also to refresh the gutters, repair, and also remove the paint that is on the wall here. And that will be clarified in the photos in a moment. But to explain the bulk of the work, which is mostly not visible other than the paint removal, we have this half-width alcove. We would like to take this line and stretch it full width as indicated on the right elevation. The garage would also continue that, keeping in kind with the current style of structure that is there. We would replicate that. Also part of this historic district, we have large openings at the front facades, which we would like to reuse as a style to create this large opening at the rear. It is not a full divided light opening. If we go back to the first photo, you can barely get a glimpse of it here. Large openings, large panes of glass, 1/1 over 1, and that's what we would like to do at the rear, using that as a reference point. I could explain what all these drawings are. Basically, it's on the left is the demolition plan, on the right is the proposed plan, and in short, to appease zoning and DOB, we had to remove about 3 foot over alcove so as not to worsen and pre-existing non-compliant conditions, and then infill what we are trying to create with the full width, and that is most simply expressed with this diagram here. The dotted line shows the removal, the hash shows the infill, and that is basically the proposal.
Okay. Questions? Yes, Michael.
Pictures of the back,
Here.
kind of like above, like looking from above, or like kind of back windows.
From above?
Well, just what strikes me is that on the site plan, the rear yard two-story additions look remarkably, with the one exception, very irregular. Am I misreading that in some way?
The two-story alcoves?
Go back to the site plan,
Yes.
and you have, it says attached to existing two-story extensions.
Yes, these are the existing extensions.
They seem remarkably irregular with the exception of that one garage thing in the middle. I just wanted to get a sense of what that's like, because you're obviously proposing to break that regularity, right?
Yes, we're going full width in this
And shallow.
proposal. Only because DOB requires us to go shallow, but yes, it would be a little more shallow. We're required to hold a 30-foot rear yard setback. And you can see...
Kind of just hard in those images to see those second-story elements.
It may show a little more clearly on the printout. And do this.
I got one.
Okay.
Is there public access to that area in the back? It shows gates in the plan, but
Correct. The only access is through these gates, which the committee is working amongst themselves to create a secure method of getting in and out without having the general public
so
go
it's
through
not a
there.
public.
It's
right,
not.
okay.
It's technically not a public thoroughfare. And the alcoves, if the front facade is your primary facade, and the garage along the garage line along this service alley is your secondary, then perhaps the alcoves would be a little further in, being your tertiary perhaps. I'm not sure what language definition you would like to use on that. But the most apparent is this line here, the line of the one-story structures, which is clearly very.
Just to
Can you-
clarify,
yeah.
From a zoning point of view, from a building code point of view, you're required to take down the tail because, I mean, if you didn't
You don't
want-
have to, I don't think you have to take down the
Why would you
tail.
have to take down the 3 feet?
I can explain that actually.
It doesn't have to be in one line.
Yeah, I just thought that your new
You could,
addition-
yeah, your new addition can go up to,
You were suggesting you must remove that 3-foot dotted area. Did I hear you wrong?
it doesn't have to be in one plane, right? You could keep that, it's an existing non-compliance. Whatever you enlarge at the second floor just has to maintain the 30 feet, unless it's an issue of floor area.
Well,
It may not be all in one plane, there'll be a recess, but you'll maintain the facade at the L.
the new portion.
Yes,
Their justification, and I mean, I could go back to them and
okay.
if this is LPC's direction, I can present that.
Mm-hmm.
Any new work must be held at 30 feet, which is this hashed area.
Right,
Um,
that piece.
Right, and this piece in question would create an area here which they considered would be a, what was the terminology we used?
Oh, they swapped it?
Basically.
Okay,
Yeah, that's part of it. There was also the fact that you can see here the existing, there's a inner courtyard, which is an existing non-compliant courtyard. So in order to get rid of this condition, we built the building out. But in order to get rid of the sliver of courtyard that might have been left, they're asking us to take this whole line back, infill everything there. That is the request. If you want us to create this step, for us that's slightly more square footage. It's a bit more difficult in structure. It can be done, but it also means that the entire rear, structurally we'd have to address that, and also the rear, the new construction may not be
all right.
acceptable by zoning.
I'm just surprised that, so there's an infill. I mean, the garage right now extends at the first floor level all the way to beyond 30 feet, right? So I know that your drawing shows this little infill, but currently that infill doesn't exist? Do you see that
There's a
little
stair
piece?
there. There's a stair. The current garage is in the shaded area with a stair that gets up to the terrace level above. So we're going to keep all that. We're going to take this
You know
stair
what
and
part
move
I'm
it.
talking about? The area that you said is a swap?
Mhm. Here,
That piece.
over here. We're holding this line. So this area,
Okay. All right, the other question, just on, if you could go back to the earlier drawing, which shows the footprints of the buildings, shows the block. Right. So at the current block plan, you've shown us that L is only for the second floor, correct? So if you show the first floor, what would that pattern be? Does it extend all the way out? I just can't tell.
It is-
You have that line, right?
yes.
Let me just go back. And that line is even?
No.
On the first floor, currently it is here.
Right, but I'm talking about just the pattern on the block. So
Rest of the houses.
the rest of the houses,
The rest of the
that
houses
piece,
are
the
here.
L that you see, which is, half width,
Mhm.
that's the second floor. That's not the first.
It's the same on the first floor.
Oh, it's the same,
on the first floor.
But-
Footprint for the first and second floor. What's confusing is that there are garages that butt up to the L that are one-story additions. So when you're looking at the photographs, it looks like that L might extend full width to the end of the lot, but it doesn't actually. The garages are their own separate structure that either butt up or. they
oh,
go
I see, so that hasn't been incorporated
And those
in this.
are,
The drawing here, the line that they're holding, if you look
Yeah.
at it, there are dashes and dots that represent either a one, full
Oh,
width
okay.
or partial width garage that's not actually drawn in the footprint.
Okay, but starts becoming the volumes that you see at the rear.
And that's why when I started, I talked about this, the secondary facade line, because it creates a visual volume behind that wall, which abuts up to the
Okay.
existing alcove.
when you walk back there, it's difficult to tell that there are regularity in the Ls that are the additions that are there.
Got it. Other questions? All right. Are there any speakers on this item? Any speakers? Okay, there are no speakers. Community Board 10 has submitted their resolution, and they have no objections to the proposal. Right. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Then we can close the hearing and move to discussion. Comments? Yes, Fred.
To me, this is a major improvement in the plan. It seems like it's a very interesting block. First of all, that it's been divided this way. It's part of the grid, but so much different from the regular grid, and that it has that alley. Favoring cars, I guess, over gardens. Never mind. But it is what it is. It seems to be highly irrational in the back there, with these funny little courtyards and a funny little stair coming up. That's not accessible by the public, or even your neighbors, I suppose. So now the stair will be inside a slightly larger garage, which is useful, eliminating that stair subject to ice and snow and et cetera, et cetera. So the whole thing seems rational, and therefore it's completely not visible from the public thoroughfare. It's part of a completely changed environment from the initial layout.
Fred, there's only one area. I think it's because there's a gate on the north side, so you get an oblique view, but you do get sort of a partial view.
Okay.
Just to clarify that.
All right, but from my way of looking at things,
okay.
It's mincing words. I view this as right. So anyway, in any event, I think this is a very rational thing to do, and might even be a model for some of the neighbors as well.
Well put. I couldn't have said it better. Others? Yes.
I still sort of lament the fact that what still is that little L, that symmetrical L, or the L that appears on most of the houses in the same places. The only reason I guess I think that it's appropriate is because, usually when brownstones or townhouses come to us, and they want an addition, there's a way to do it. They can do it on the roof, or they can add to the back. And I think these kinds of townhouses, because they're so special, you can't go up and you can't do with so much on the back. So I think this is appropriate. Just sorry that we have to do it, but I think that it is appropriate. And the only other thing, I'm not sure that using the front as the reference, I think this facade really is a secondary facade, and so I don't think that using the windows from the front on the back, it really makes sense. I think that they could be their own something else.
In other words, they don't have to justify it as coming from the front, that they could make their own argument because it's at the rear. Okay. Michael?
I take I guess, a little different view of this. I mean, normally a typical brownstone block is made up of varied buildings produced over varied times, resulting in a varied street front and a relatively regular interior. But our general pattern is to view the rear yards more leniently, generously, because they are generally not visible to the public at all. This was a planned block where the incursions into it are regularized and symmetrical and part of that plan. And even though the ground plane is taken up by these kind of garage door facades, I think that from an, if one looks at the interior courtyard block as a space that we do when we look at typical brownstone blocks, I think that the degree of uniformity that this block possesses is quite a bit more regular and more designed, let's say, than many other brownstone blocks that we look at. So for me, I think that the addition is okay, but I would suggest that they explore what you were suggesting, which is keeping keeping a portion of that L that remains, so that you do have a step in the facade, and you do recall the rhythm that is very, very much present in the rest of this planned block.
Okay. Other comments? All right, so, good. If there are no other comments, I think we could ask them to just explore that, the shift in plane. It'll, I think, recall, as we've done in other situations, recall what was historically the line where you'd have the L. Okay? All right, so we can close, I think we closed the hearing already. And Diana, would you read that out, please? Thanks.
Okay. The matter of a certificate of appropriateness, Borough of Manhattan, 249 West 138th Street, St. Nicholas Historic District, Block 2024, Lot 11. Application is a certificate of appropriateness. The application is to modify and enlarge the rear yard addition and garage. Okay, thank you. I note that the scale, materials, and details of the buildings are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the St. Nicholas Historic District. The commissioners further noted that the interior of this block has been altered over time with the construction of garages in a variety of materials and depths. Staff recommends approval with modifications, finding that the proposed modification to the existing two-story L and one-story garage will only be visible from West 138th Street at an extreme oblique angle through a private gate located at the northern boundary of the block. The historic footprint of the mid-block row houses, including partial width two-story Ls, is largely imperceptible from within the alley due to existing partial and full-width garages of various heights, and therefore the proposed modification to the L at this row house will not detract from the character of the interior of the block. That modifying and expanding the L to create an addition that is less steep than the existing L, featuring one large multi-light metal window and door assembly, will incorporate the outer masonry piers and part of the east lot line wall, and therefore will maintain some continuity with the L additions found throughout the block. That enlarging the garage by removing the outermost masonry pier and the adjacent gate will not remove any historic fabric and will be consistent with numerous existing garages in the row. The color, style, size, coursing, and finish of the proposed brickwork at the rear addition and garage will recall the historic brickwork and therefore will be in keeping with the materiality and color palette of the rear facades and additions within the block. However, we recommend that the rear extension be revised to include a shift in plane to recall the historic rhythm of Ls, and the applicant will work with the staff to achieve that, and that the proposed work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the building and the St. Nicholas Historic District.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank
The
you.
application's approved.